Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Markets. I'm Scarlet Fu. It's time now for the stock of the hour, and we're focused on Teva Pharmaceuticals. Those shares are rising after the drug maker reaffirmed its full-year revenue guidance, even after sales missed estimates for the second quarter, for the quarter that ended. Teva is gearing up to launch new products in the second half of the year and looking at spinning off its active ingredient business, which it hopes will work as catalysts. So joining us live, I'm pleased to say, is the Teva CEO, Richard Francis, and of course, Bloomberg Open Interest co-host Katie Griefeld here with us as well. Richard, thank you so much for speaking with us. I want to start with the backdrop that you are operating against, which is tariffs and how that affects you. The U.S. and the EU kicked off this week agreeing to 15% tariffs on pharmaceuticals. How does that affect your business, particularly here in the U.S.?
Well, firstly, thank you, Scarlett and Katie, for having me. I do appreciate the time. So when it comes to tariffs, yes, that is hot topic. And how it impacts us, a couple of things I'd say is, firstly, we're not super clear on exactly the detail of what's happened in Europe and whether generics are included or whether they're not. I would like to say the exposure to China, we don't have any exposure to China, and we have very limited exposure to India, because obviously you saw the tariffs being announced this morning. But I think the reason why I feel in a good position is our supply chain and how it's set up. So we have 8 manufacturing sites in the US already, and our major product, which I'm sure we'll talk about, Austedo, which grew at 22% in the US, is manufactured in Florida. So I think from a point of view of supply chain, we're in a good position, but what we do need to have is clarity on what these tariffs mean in Europe and what they mean in other parts of the world, and the detail of that, because there has been some rumors that generics may be excluded or not, and so we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, no, you're working in a fog of uncertainty, and I get that, and I'm just curious whether you've had conversations with the White House or surrogates of the White House on these specific issues?
Well, we've been working with them on 232 and helping them sort of work through what is the complexity of the pharmaceutical market, the supply chain, as well as on the innovative side and on the generic side. But with regard to these tariffs that have just recently been announced, we don't have any clarity yet on the detail. What I would say is, because of what I said about our supply chain and our footprint in the US, as well as we've been working the last few months on mitigating plans as to whatever may happen. Now, let's see the detail, but it's something where I think we already would have plans in place to at least mitigate some of this.
I hear what you're saying, Richard, that there's a lot of details that we would all like to have, especially you, where you're sitting as the CEO of a pharmaceutical business. But you said in May that you would have to raise drug prices if President Trump imposed those pharma tariffs. And now that we have at least some details when it comes to the U.S. and the EU, is that still the plan? Is that a lever that you plan to pull?
Well, okay, when you think about the two businesses we have the innovative business and we have the generics. On the innovative business, we won't increase prices because the way the system's set up, we can't. So that's just fact. But as I said, our major products actually made in the United States, so tariffs are not actually relevant to that, which is good for us. I think when it comes to generics, it's a very competitive market, and you can only raise prices when you have a new contract. And in that position, it's still a free market, so it depends what our competitors do. So I think the ability for prices to change will depend on the competitive environment and how some of our competitors move. So I think, will they go up? I think we'll have to wait and see. There is the potential that they could, but I would argue that, in the United States, 1 in 15 scripts is a Teva script. So we're a major supplier of the healthcare system in the United States. And we've been communicating to the administration, who are very aware of this, and I would say sympathetic. They want to make sure there is a good supply of medicines to the United States. And so I think as that all plays together, we'll understand actually how tariffs do fall on the generics. Or if they do, or if they don't. But I think that's how I'd separate in our business. We have the innovative, where we can't raise prices. Theoretically, you can in generics,
right,
but it is a competitive environment.
Appreciate the context there. I want to talk about another issue that we are also searching for details on, and that is most favored nation drug pricing. That is a proposal that President Trump has floated. We've been talking about your generics business, but when it comes to your branded franchise, how might MFN affect that, and are you putting any plans in place there?
Well, actually, we're in a really unique position here, Katie. So I don't think most people who sit in my seat will answer it this way. Is because our innovative portfolio is so young. I mean, it's 27% growth. and is closing on $2.9 billion of revenue. And this is Austedo, Ajovy, and Uzedy. But apart from Ajovy, these are basically sold in the United States. We haven't gone global yet. And so because of that, the most favored nation pricing, I think, one, we need to see what it says and when it's going to be put in place. But we're not a mature biopharma company yet where we have that geographical footprint of our innovative business. So that gives us, I think, time to think about what we do, to think about where we launch our products, and to think about the pricing. But right now, Austedo and Uzedy are pretty much sold in the United States. Ajovy is spread across Europe and international markets. So that's a very limited footprint compared to many other biopharma companies. What I would say is it's important to understand what the most favored nation look like. Because another thing I'd say is when you look at the actual net price of products in the United States, on many cases, because of what has happened with the PBMs over time, the net price versus the price in Europe, there's not as big a differential as you'd imagine on many drugs. So let's wait and see how it plays out. But I think we're in a strong position as Teva, and that's important because our innovative portfolio is growing so well at 27%.
And Richard, we have less than a minute left here, but Scarlett alluded to this in the intro that there's a lot of interest in the TAPI business over at Teva. Have you found a buyer yet?
So we've been in active discussions, and we are in active discussions, which is why I'll probably keep this quite short. And we'll have an announcement on this at the end of Q3. What we are doing is taking the time to make sure whatever we do, we really bring value to our shareholders, which is the prime responsibility I have, is to make sure we create a long-term sustainable company that creates shareholder value.
Richard Francis, you just earned yourself an invitation to come back by the end of the third quarter with that announcement. Thank you so much for joining us today. Teva Pharmaceutical CEO Richard Francis, and of course, Katie Griefeld, Bloomberg Open Interest co-host.